Hey tribe, it's Catherine from Livity blog, here to uncover the truths they don't want us to know, with another deep dive into the hidden history, lost knowledge, and the indigenous wisdom they tried to erase. If you've ever felt like something about our history doesn't add up, trust me, you're not alone. We're here to break through the lies, reconnect with our roots, and take back what was stolen. If you've ever questioned the history they taught us, felt disconnected from your ancestry, or just know deep down that there's more to our story, you're in the right place. Our history didn't start with oppression, it started with greatness. Our ancestors were here long before Columbus. They built civilizations, navigated oceans, and lived in harmony with the land. But through genocide, reclassification, and the suppression of indigenous knowledge, we were forced to forget who we are. Ready? Journey with me and reconnect with your true ancestry. The Shinnecock Indians, Black Indigenous guardians of the Hamptons.
For at least the last century, the Hamptons has been a spot for the wealthy to get away from the hustle and bustle. They can drive their limousines right past this indigenous community and not even know that we exist.
We're a small community. We're finite in this greater community of the Hamptons. The land base that we have here is approximately 1,200 acres. This is a small piece of our original territory. Our original territory extended from the East Hampton town line all the way to the Brookhaven town line. One of the first things that we did as a people in 1640, when the first settlers arrived, is we gave them 8 square miles of land to use, which is now current-day Southampton Village. And we've paid the price for it ever since. Here we sit, in the middle of lifestyles of the rich and famous, and yet 60% of our people in our community are below the poverty level. That's a problem.
You've seen the Hamptons in movies, you've seen it on TV. But what if I told you the Hamptons were built on stolen land, sacred land, from a Black Indigenous nation that's still fighting to survive today? This is the untold story of the Shinnecock Indian Nation, the original people of the East End of Long Island.
It's Lisa Goray, Chair of the Tribal Council of the Shinnecock Indian Nation. Welcome.
Hi, Cheryl. Thank you for having me.
So how unusual it is for a woman to be elected a tribal leader?
Very unusual for the Shinnecock Nation. As you mentioned in your opening, it's been over 200 years since we had a female that represented the tribe, the leader of the tribe.
But at some point, women were the leaders of the tribe, and that changed at some point. What happened?
So back in 1792, when we began treaties and negotiations with the state over our land rights, we were forced into a 3-man trustee system. So prior to 1792, we did have a female that was the head of the tribe. She was actually called Sun Squaw. And we still have a Sun Squaw currently, but she's not the head of the tribe.
So give me just a very brief history of the Shinnecock tribe. Have they always been on Long Island?
We have existed on our territory on Long Island for over 13,000 years.
And you were originally fishermen, I understand?
Fishermen, hunters, whalers, yes.
And you originally had a whole lot more land than you do now.
Yes, we did. We actually inhabited from Montauk all the way to Brookhaven back in the 1600s prior to the settlers arriving.
And so the European settlers came, were they English, Dutch?
The first settlers were Dutch.
Okay.
Our first contact were the Dutch. Yes.
And I guess it was sort of the usual story. The settlers brought disease, for one thing, that killed off a lot of people. In some cases, just murder, and certainly appropriation of land.
Yes.
When did the reservation, which is what, 800 acres?
About 800 acres we now reside on.
When was the reservation created?
Well, back in around 1859 is actually when we were placed on what we now call the neck of Southampton Village. So as the settlers started taking our land and our land base started getting smaller and smaller, they placed us on a small piece of our territory, which is about 800 acres, and that's where we are today.
So the Shinnecock were sort of rounded up and moved to this particular place?
Pretty much, yeah. So as throughout the years, beginning in the 1700s, we started leasing our land to farmers. So as we started leasing our land, we would just have that small place, which we called our territory, and later called a reservation by the settlers. So that's where we are now, and we've been there since the 1800s.
The Shinnecock, meaning people of the Stony Shore, are an Algonquian-speaking indigenous people who've lived on the South Fork of Long Island for over 10,000 years. They are one of the oldest self-governing indigenous tribes in North America. And they're not extinct, they're still here. Traditionally, the Shinnecock were fishermen, whalers, farmers, herbalists, and master artisans of wampum shell beads, sacred currency and spiritual tools used by dozens of tribes across the Northeast.
I came here to visit my family who lives on the res, but also Southampton. Half the family is res and half the family came here during the Depression and into Southampton, and we came at the time when there was corn and potatoes and duck farms and dairy farms and no mansions. Okay, those are our people from North Carolina, West Indies, Virginia. I was talking about a book called Black Indians. I'm going to advertise this. It's by William Katz, K-A-T-Z. Very important to understand the history of who we are as Native Americans, as Africans, African Americans now, but also as the mixture of people that we are and don't acknowledge. I'm saying this because as we look at each other and other people and feel the connection with each other, we can't always do genetic testing. 23andMe doesn't work for all of us. Ancestry.com doesn't work for all of us because there are not records that go past or before the Civil War that would keep track of us very well. So we are gathering at straws to find out who we are.
Many Shinnecock people are Black Indigenous, descendants of indigenous tribes who mixed with African communities long before and after colonization. Some of this connection is due to survival. Escaped enslaved Africans found refuge among tribes like the Shinnecock, but much of it predates slavery because transatlantic contact existed long before Columbus. Now, new evidence of Black Indigenous tribes and cultures connected to Olmec and other ancient civilizations suggests that the original peoples of the Americas could have had connections to the original mound builders and were erased from history due to colonial narratives. Historical records even describe indigenous tribes with dark skin, woolly hair, and features that align with African ancestry. This part of history has been systematically erased. In 1640, English settlers arrived in Southampton. Within decades, they began pushing the Shinnecock off their ancestral territory. The tribe was forced onto a 900-acre reservation, a fraction of their original lands. Even that land was later encroached upon, including sacred burial sites bulldozed to make way for highways and golf courses. One of the largest golf tournaments in the world, the U.S. Open, was held on Shinnecock land, while the tribe had to watch from the sidelines, underfunded, underserved, and ignored.
The Hamptons also have a dark side, an ancient conflict between the white man and his mansions and the Shinnecock, a native tribe who lived next door on their ancestral lands. Now, the conflict is erupting again as the Shinnecock have erected a giant tribal monument on the only road into the Hamptons. I went to find out how an indigenous symbol could raise tensions in a place with the world's highest concentration of NPR tote bags.
It is kind of an eyesore. You know, you come here for its beautiful nature and environment, and to see that, it's just out of place.
Very obtrusive and distracting.
Okay.
It's so big.
Right.
There's so much to kind of cover from top to bottom.
It's distracting, and so it could be potentially dangerous for any of the drivers.
Okay, it's potentially dangerous for drivers, but that's not the main objection.
I believe that it doesn't allow you to maintain the purity of an enclave here.
When white people start talking about purity, even I get a little creeped out. But many of these Hamptonites really believe the monument infringes on their spiritual connection to the land. To get the tribe's perspective, I met with Chairman Brian Polite. And no, I'm not going to make fun of his name. That would be rude.
Brian, thank you for sitting down. I know you've had some bad experiences with the white man, but I come in peace.
Hey, man, we're all about peace.
The people of Southampton are saying that due to your monument, their way of life is under attack. You're laughing, okay.
That's just laughable. We're a sovereign nation, and they have no authority to tell us what we can and cannot do on our chop of land.
What was the reaction within the tribe when the monument went up?
Very happy. We're the forgotten people of the Hamptons. So now we have our marker on the gateway of the Hamptons reminding people that they're all visitors on our land.
Clearly, the monument is a source of pride, but what is it? Could it be a totem, a rock carving, or an ancient burial mound? I couldn't wait to experience this mysterious tribal monument for myself.
Holy shit, it's a billboard. I've never seen anything so big. I mean, I have, but it's pretty big.
So these natives are using capitalism to ruin the white man's sacred way of living with nature. Talk about cultural appropriation.
This tribal monument looks a lot like an electronic billboard.
If you ask anybody on the Shinnecock Nation, they'll say it's a monument.
Let's call it what it is. This monument is your side hustle. You're making some extra money on the side.
It's a monument to our overcoming adversity and saying that we're still here. But also, we need money for education, police department, playgrounds, social programs. So it'll have an immediate economic impact to the nation.
How much of this monument is economics for the tribe, and how much of it is kind of a fuck you to the Hampton residents?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both.
Now, you see, that's not very polite.
Today, the Shinnecock face some of the harshest inequalities in New York State, despite being surrounded by billion-dollar homes. The facts. Many tribal homes lack plumbing, heating, or structural safety. Access to quality health care is limited. Life expectancy is significantly lower than surrounding communities. Unemployment and poverty rates remain high. Environmental racism plagues their shoreline and water systems. They are surrounded by opulence but denied basic human dignity on their own ancestral lands. Despite this, the Shinnecock continue to resist. They are reclaiming space, voice, and visibility. The Shinnecock Monument Project is a massive billboard facing Montauk Highway. It tells drivers they are entering native land. It also generates revenue to support the tribe. They've launched Shinnecock cannabis businesses to create economic independence and are actively reviving their language, ceremonies, and matrilineal governance. They're not asking for charity. They're demanding justice. This is not ancient history. This is not a past tense tribe. These are our neighbors, our teachers, our protectors of the earth. The Shinnecock remind us that the land we walk on has memory, and the people we've been told to forget are often the ones who hold the keys to our future. This is about sovereignty, not sympathy, truth, not tokenism, reconnection, not revision. If you care about Indigenous rights, environmental justice, or dismantling the systems that still uphold colonial violence, then you need to know this story. Support the Shinnecock Nation, learn their history, share their truth, demand protection for their land. And remember, the Shinnecock were here before the Hamptons, and they will be here long after the last mansion falls. Read the full article on livity.blog, link in bio. Learn more at https://shinnecocknsn.gov. The Olmecs, the Mayans, the Black Caribs, our people have been here for thousands of years. Yet through colonization, forced reclassification, and deliberate erasure, our history was stolen from us. Our ancestors were here long before Columbus. They built civilizations, navigated oceans, and lived in harmony with the land. But through genocide, reclassification, and the suppression of Indigenous knowledge, we were forced to forget who we are. They didn't just take our land, they took our identity. That's why I started Livity blog, to expose the lies of colonization, to reclaim the truth about who we are, and to rebuild what was stolen. It's time to unveil the truth about our past, the impact of colonization, and the resilience of Aboriginal communities. Through art, culture, and heritage, we can piece together the puzzle of our shared history. Ready to embark on this eye-opening adventure? Join me as we dive into the wisdom, art, and traditions of Indigenous cultures across the globe. Together, we'll uncover the buried legacies that connect us all. It's time to rewrite history, one story at a time. Are you in? Download your free ebook now, Awakening to Oneness, and reclaim the spiritual connection our ancestors lived by. By subscribing to livity.blog, you'll gain exclusive access to this transformative journey completely free. Together, we'll explore ancient traditions, hidden histories, and the powerful teachings that lead us back to unity, balance, and truth. Subscribe now.